Nightly Musers, followers of the pod, faithful few and hopeful many. This is Anchor by Spotify. If you haven't heard about it, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's the very platform that allows me to give you what I give you on the nightly. So let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And it gives you the ability to distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so much more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally FREE free. So here's where you come in. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is ANCHOR.fm to get started. Thank you very much. Peace. Welcome to the Nightly Muse. This is your host, Tinayeshe. And I did one of the hardest things that I have done in a long time, or at least the past few months. I said no to something I really, really love. I've told my story of how I got into coaching, but I'm going to tell it again. I was a senior in high school, finishing out my track career, which was pretty, it had a lot of unexpected, really unfortunate lows. One of those came because of being in a play during track season. Most of them though came from, if you don't know track, specifically the field part, you can get disqualified for things or scratch. So I was a shot put and discus thrower, and there's a circle that you throw inside of, and then you throw out of the circle to the object you throw out of the circle into the boundary. And so I remember my sophomore year, I qualified for states in discus, and I was pretty good. I was throwing about 100, I made a pretty big jump. I was throwing about, I think I barely got over 100 my freshman year, and then my coach realized that I'd been throwing the wrong way. I learned how to throw in middle school, my 8th grade year, and I was throwing it incorrectly. And improperly is probably correct as well. But anyway, I was throwing it incorrectly, but I was winning all the time. I won in both events in 8th grade, the tournament or whatever. I don't know if I ever lost, which was kind of fun. But anyway, in 8th grade. Then I get to my freshman year, my coach teaches me how to actually throw it, so now I have to relearn. And then I thought, man, if I was throwing it the right way in middle school, like I would have broke records and stuff. But anyway, not the point. I got to state sophomore year, and I scratched every throw. So in discus specifically, there's a sector foul, and then there's a like circle foul. If I fall out of the circle, if I step on the boundary of the circle, then it's a scratch. If I throw it outside of out of bounds, then that's also a scratch. And every throw that I threw went out of bounds. Like I almost hit a car. And it was one of those situations where I think Simone Biles, I am not in any way in the same stratosphere as her, but it's a spin technique. And so if you're in the wrong spot, if you lose track of where you 18-wheeler, if you lose track of where you are, like that's going to affect where the discus goes. That'll affect like your body positioning, will affect how the discus flies. all of these little things impact the end result. And every throw, it was like I would try to readjust, and every time I would scratch the same way. And it was insane. And then my junior year in the play, had a really strong season. And even despite my inability to be as committed, because I was in two places at once, which means that you're in neither place fully. Get to states, and I swear to this day, I'm gonna have to get to heaven and find out for sure. He called a scratch on a throw that would have gotten me on the podium, which at that point was like a huge barrier for me, because I always, quote unquote, choked at states, at conference. My junior year at conference, I threw what likely would have broken the school record, and it was just out of bounds. And then at states, I threw what would have gotten me on the podium, and he said I stepped on the line in the circle, and I wanted to fight the coach, because I knew with everything that I had that I was on my tiptoes and I couldn't have been on the line. But he said that I was, and I had to take it. So now we're in my senior year, and my first two throws, first throw would have broken the school record, probably would have won me the state tournament, and it was just outside the boundary. Second throw, same thing. So now it's my third throw, and I'm about to basically repeat my sophomore year, scratch every throw, and now I don't have any more opportunities. My career is over at my best event, in my second best sport, even though technically track was my best sport, even though I was a pretty dang good football player. And I threw it, made it to finals, and then on my last throw, so freaking dramatic, I throw it, fall into the circle, and since I stayed inside the circle somehow, he was just waiting for me to get up so he could mark my throw. It got me second, and then some guy threw after me and bumped me down to third, but I got on the podium, ended my career all-state, which was a huge deal for me because I won conference, which was also like step number one. Never broke the school record, which haunts me to this day. But long story long, literally the majority of this podcast talking about 18-wheeler, my tumultuous, dramatic, mostly frustrating track career was my senior year. My throwers coach wasn't there, and I was basically the player coach. There was another guy, Coach Darius, love him, who stepped in, didn't know discus, but understood biomechanics and helped me as much as he could. And he was like, hey, you should walk on at UNC Charlotte. And I thought about it, and I did pretty hard because I loved track, and I was good at it, and had never really had like my former coach was a decathlete, I believe, and so I never had like a purely just throwing coach that all they did was throw. And my senior year, I didn't have a coach at all. And so I'm like under, some sort of tutelage, I could probably make big jumps in this sport. But anyway, I got used to college life being a non-athletic regular person, and Uncle Rob called me, and he was like, hey, we need a throwers coach. Do you want to do this? And I was like, sure. And at the time, everybody thought that I was going to end up back at the school because I stayed in town going to UNC Charlotte. And that was probably the last thing on my mind. I didn't necessarily leave with the best taste in my mouth from my high school. Loved the school. But I had some pretty tough times my senior year. And to come back specifically as a coach was not part of the plan. I never really had interest in being a coach. But it changed my world. I fell in love with it immediately. The relationships, it was really hard. There were a lot of challenges. I was 18 years old coaching some people who were older than me because I was young for my grade level. And that was awkward. Being in a position of leadership with people that I was like not classmates with, but we were schoolmates a year ago. And so that was a weird adjustment, not even a full year yet. And so that was hard, but overall, man, I fell in love with middle school sports. I started coaching football the next year, which really blew the doors open for me as it pertained to my coaching career, because though I was good at coaching track, I was even better at coaching football because I understood the game more. Track, I had an understanding because I had to learn the technique over a 5-year career. But with football, I could speak the game more. And man, it was an amazing experience in coaching middle school sports in a space where, again, you can't play football year round. You can do 7-on-7s, you can do camps. But as soon as you get out of that middle school framework, it's all about trying to get to varsity, trying to get recruited, trying to get to the big camps, trying to get to the opening, to the All-American game, all of this stuff that isn't about football and about loving the game. And in middle school, that's the only opportunity that you have to just fall in love with the sport and play it just for the pure joy of playing the game. And that is what I loved about coaching. And even in high school, because of that, I took that mindset as a high school coach to, hey, at the end of the day, my job and my goal is to get you to play to the best of your ability. But I also just want you to fall in love with this thing. I want you to pursue it with all that you have, but also be in the moment and enjoy it, because you may not play college football. Your career may only be 4 years. And what are you going to do when that's taken away? If that's taken away. And eventually, everybody's career is on the clock. And so, far be it for me to not coach somebody. Obviously, you want them to reach, you're their number one fan. You want them to reach the goals that they want to reach. But you also want them to have a healthy relationship with that. That there's more to life than the game. And I've been, I coached, what was that, 2017? So 2017, I coached track, then I coached football, then the next year, I coached track, 2018, football, wrestling. 2019, I coached track, football, and then 2020, I coached track, and then the year ended early. So then I coached spring football at CSD, track at CSD, middle school football, track at CSD, That's 17 seasons. If that's correct, that's insane. But I've coached 17 seasons of sports in the past 4 years. Is that right? It's 2022. I started coaching in 2017. Yeah. And so is that right? Did I do that right? Track, football, wrestling, track, football, wrestling. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. So it was track, football, wrestling, track, football, wrestling? I can't remember. I'm going to confirm it later because I'm driving and trying to do math, and that's really hard. And you don't want me to waste my time figuring this out, but I'm going to. 2017, track. Then fall, football. And then track again, 2018. And then football. And then I want to say that it was wrestling in 2018. And then it was track, 7. This is 2019, football, wrestling, and then track, 2020. And then football, spring, track, football again, wrestling, track. So we're at 14. There we go. Not 17. Sorry. I coached 14 seasons. And over the past 7 years and 5 years. My goodness. 14 seasons in 5 years. And you fall in love. I mean, there's middle school within that. There's middle school and high school. So that's kind of like 2 different seasons. Like, those are 14 seasons where some of those seasons I'm helping out with both teams. With track, I helped out with middle school and high school every time except for when I coached at CSD. So because of that, I do get to, I think it was wrestling 3 times. So you get to middle high, that's an extra 3. And then track every time at Charlotte Christian, that's an extra whatever. That's like an extra 4. It's an extra set. Like, that's, so you're talking different teams, different programs. You fall in love. And I work for a church now, helping out with the youth. I run this thing called Sunday Hoops, and I'm working on my own EP. And I want to see my family somewhat regularly because I love them. And there's a lot of opportunity for relationship and being with the people that I love. There's a lot of opportunity for that. But at the same time, I can only be in so many places at once. And so I'm forced into this position of having to decide what to do. And I realized as an adult, it's not about weighing out pros and cons because they're all good. Coaching football this year would have been amazing. And being able to be with those kids every day, 5 days a week, to love on them, to teach them about the game in a way that I wish I would have been taught, to invest in them in the ways that I was invested in, to give back, to show them like all the things that I like, that opportunity, and I can't do it because how can I record an EP and coach football at the same time and work for a church? And like, I can't. I can, but I'll be exhausted. How can I have the flexibility to do worship nights and be present with a kid and go to multiple kids' games, go to Charlotte Christian and check out Cam at quarterback, to check out Jack and Will at Huff, to check out all the kids that I coached in middle school when they were at Charlotte Christian, and see them do more than I was even capable of dreaming of, to support the kids at our church and just be available. Those are things I can't do as a coach and an assistant worship director and a worship night leader and a brother and a son and all of those things. And you just end up realizing you can't say yes to everything. And so today I had to say no to coaching football, which is my favorite sport to coach. And I feel like a part of me, like I had to kill a part of me. Because coaching, when I fell in love with it, felt like something in my life that I knew I never wanted to get rid of. That no matter what my career was, I wanted to be able to coach. Because it's something that I love so dearly. And now my life looks differently, and I've grown, and I know that I have other interests, and now I have to make different decisions, and I hate it so much. And so again, here goes another episode where I was supposed to talk about black love and I didn't. But I put in the prayer requests at my community group. Also, can I just give a shout out to the listeners here, all of my friends, family. I did a GoFundMe for this EP project thing, and it hadn't even been 48 hours yet. I posted it Monday morning, and it is Tuesday night. Technically, it's Wednesday at midnight, but it's Tuesday night, and I'm already fully funded. And, like, what more can I say? Like, I hadn't even finished praying about it, like, for it. And I checked, and I had already had bukus of money in there. And then before, like, I just happened to check again right after I had prayed at the community group. And, of course, God's like, I got you, dude. And I'm just like, this is insane. I hate self-promotion. This is, like, so hard for me. But God, for less than 48 hours, here's everything you need from the community, the people around me. Like, that is phenomenal. But what I wanted to say was thank you. And also, in life, sometimes you have to get used to it not always being black and white. This is the right decision, this is the wrong decision, and understanding that sometimes they're just decisions that have to be made. And those decisions come with certain things, and you have to be at peace with what those decisions come with. I could have gone ahead and just powered through and said, I'm just going to do the dang thing, and coached. But it would have been a disservice to the kids, and I wouldn't have been able to give it my all. And I've had to do this before when I stepped away from coaching at Charlotte Christian for the first time. But this time sucked because I really wanted to make it happen, and I just couldn't. And so this is the reality that is just the reality, and it sucks. And today was just one of those days. And so sometimes you have to mourn saying no to things that aren't inherently bad. Sometimes you have to mourn letting things go, because I just never thought that I would go without coaching, and I have had to face that reality multiple times now. And so here I am with every joy. There is sometimes a cup of sorrow, and I am learning that. So bear with me, nightly musers. Have a wonderful night, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Shout out Low Fly.